this special episode of Work the Left Side. It is the Kris Travis appreciation episode. I did do an intro previously, which I have deleted just because it went off about 10 minutes and nobody's watching this to listen to me talk, so I will just crack on. Just to say thank you to everybody who took the time to talk to me, and I hope the episode does the man justice, and I hope by the end of it you have a smile on your face, and more importantly you remember the kind of guy Kris was and the impact that he had. So watch, enjoy, smile, but most importantly remember.
So it was in, I think it was around 2002 or 2003, which was very early on and in terms of our wrestling, and we did a couple of shows for Jerry Norton Promotions, and we've been hired to do something called York Fest, and it was kind of pitched to us as this like wrestling at a big festival of some kind, right? So obviously being quite young, naive, and like, okay, cool, this this sounds like a good laugh. Like some of the guys from the Midlands are on it and from York and Sheffield and stuff, so we're like, me and Sticks were like, yeah, we'll do it, but like I can't remember why we couldn't do the full week, so we were like, we'll come and do like the last 2 days or something. So so we drove up to this random park somewhere in York. I don't even remember if it was called York Fest or we just named it that. It was so we turn up and it becomes abundantly clear that A, this is not a festival, and B, this is like a fun fair in the park. The bigger issue being that it's been raining all week, so no one's there because it's been raining. There's not enough tents for everybody, or there's not enough, there's not enough space in the tents that they've hired or whatever. And everybody, by the time we get there, it's been 3 days in, and me and Sticks turn up. Everyone is miserable because they have just been in the rain performing to no one for 3 days straight, and it's like twice a day as well. So we get there, and like me and Sticks end up first night we're sleeping in my car because we're like, there's no decent space in any of the tents, so we just end up sleeping in my car. One guy's got like an ear infection at this point as well. Everyone's like, and it got to the point where everyone was so kind of bored, and we're wrestling in this like tent, like awning. What am I looking for?
Type thing.
Yeah. In this big, this big tent thing with the ring in it and stuff, and it's full of garden furniture, and it's got to the point where everyone's been so like kind of bored by everything 3 days. Everyone's basically doing brawls outside the ring, throwing each other into the garden furniture to see who can break the table and stuff like that. And so I end up like on the Thursday or something, or Friday, can't remember which day. It was me and Sticks in a tag match against Travis and someone else. And there was just two things that occurred that just absolutely stick in my memories. One is that I can't remember if it was Travis or the other guy just gave me like a face plant into one of the tables, and it's just this plastic garden. But it's a plastic garden table and it's brittle, so it doesn't hurt. But literally, I hit it, and it just creates this perfect like head-shaped hole in this plastic table. So we've got this hole there in this table, and I think by the end of it, we just being young and stupid, we just wrecked all the furniture because we were so bored. But it was the finish of the match that sticks with me with this one with Travis. So I used to do this move, and I'd seen it from a wrestler called Brian XL, who was a wrestler in Ring of Honor in its really early days.
Right.
And he called it the exclamation point. And the move is like you put them in a sort of reverse DDT dragon sleeper type position. You grab hold of their waistband, you lift them up straight like that, and then you kind of, as you fall, you twist.
Ooh.
So they're sort of they're sort of facing backwards, and they end up landing on their front. And me and Kris hadn't practiced this, we hadn't done anything, but again, which is quite common. As often you don't try moves, and I'd only done it a couple of times. But Kris was quite gangly, at this point. He was quite a gangly guy, and he was still in his like brown football shirt, yellow trousers phase, and white amateur wrestling boots. And so we said, oh yeah, we'll do this for the finish. I'll get you, and I'll hit you with this exclamation point. And whether it was just because we're tired or just, it fit the bill perfectly of how we were all feeling. But I picked him up and we just didn't quite get the twist nice and flat. And basically, he came down on his like ear rather than coming down flat on his front. He came down his ear. And the best part of it, because afterwards I was like, Sticks, I was like, oh, how did it look? And he went, yeah, you basically dropped him on his ear. And the best part, though, for me personally, not Kris, obviously, the best part was the noise he made, because as we landed, as I hit the move, he just kind of made blap. No, that was the noise he made. Like, it wasn't ow or ouch or it was a blap. So yeah, that was the finish of the match. I covered him, and I say we went backstage. We went into the other tent, and he's there like this, and and we left the next day, and that was York Fest, and just from that point on, we always just said York Fest, like we're around each other just for a bit of a laugh. So it was always we always hold if you end up speaking to Sticks at all, just say to him, does he remember York Fest, and see what his version of that entails.
I want to hear him make the bleh noise.
Yeah. Oh dear.
I've got just a quick side note, because I think last time we spoke, also I think the first time we spoke, you told me a story of Travis just no selling like a hot tag. I'm certain that was in a tag match with you, Sticks. And yeah, I think somebody obviously got the hot tag, and yeah, Travis just no sold it.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, I've lost kind of a lot of the video footage of our time back at the beginning, Ben, or I'm sure someone's got it, but we were probably really dreadful. All of us, we were so inexperienced, and it's like we all thought we knew what we were doing, but we didn't, and just little things like that. I think we probably got wrong all the time. So yeah, it was...
I think I remember from what you were saying. I think it was just a deliberate thing, just to rib on the next guy.
Probably. Like, also probably true that there was a lot of piss taking back then as well. So so that was so that sounds about right.
Nice, dude. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
It's going to be one of many very amusing stories, I'm sure. So, story from James Carr.
Yeah.
And yeah, obviously you do, Kris. You just sort of saying you kind of started out at the same time and stuff. So
yeah, Kris and I we actually started together when I first started training. Kris Travis was there, and he went from being like literally like one of the sort of skinniest, shyest kids in the class, and he wore, like, when he started wrestling, he wore these sort of ridiculous, like, luminous, big, long sort of trousers. And then I went away for wrestling for a bit. We were in a group of, there was sort of 6 of us, a like, close-knit group, but I went away from wrestling for a bit, and I came back, and he was suddenly just like this chiseled, handsome superstar in British wrestling, like one of the best British wrestlers going, which was amazing to see coming from that shy kid. I got lots of fond memories of us going out in Sheffield, going to nightclubs, attempting to pull girls. Probably not very successful back in our younger days. I remember one night we got back, and we've been taught this move by Doug Williams, where all it is like you're running at someone and they go for a left arm clothesline, and you reverse. You just go into it and reverse it into a hammerlock. But in our young minds, we were like, "That's amazing! We've never seen this technical move. 'Cause it looks so fluid when we're showing it." And we nicknamed it Best Move Biz, like the best move in the business. And it became like in matches and stuff, we'd send off and go, Best Move Biz. And like, it was just like a little technical reversal, but we found it really funny. And one night we ended up, for some reason, we were wrestling on someone's car. I think it was someone in our group's car who didn't seem to mind, before anyone thinks we're just destroying people's property. But on the roof of the car, me and Trav were like sort of wrestling, and we was called Best Move Biz, and did this move on the top of the car, which and in the morning we were like, I can't believe we did Best Move Biz on the car. If that had been recorded, we'd be the top wrestlers in the country right now.
That's a highlight. That's I can't even imagine just even the space to even like be able to try and go for a clothesline on top of a car.
I mean, it wouldn't have been, it probably didn't look that amazing, and if you could have actually filmed it, but to our young sort of wrestler minds. We thought it was really funny, and then we woke up and we were going, "Oh, best move Biz on car." So that was one of my memories of our nights out. And I guess the second story I'd like to tell is when I knew Trav on. So that's sort of knowing Trav as a friend when we're starting out wrestling together. And then I got to know him years later when I started promoting True Grit and I started having him on the shows. And he'd been on the first one. And on the second one, I wanted him to be quite a key part on that. We did the TG Cup, which was like a tournament, and he was to go all the way to the final. And on the day, like his lift just didn't say, "Oh, I can't take you anymore." They just didn't want to come to the show because I think they had a cold or something. Like it was something ridiculous, and oh god. And then eventually, a wrestler by the name of Reigns, may have heard of, last minute gave him a lift. He arrived at the show like literally about 5 minutes before we're going to go start. He had to get in. He had to obviously get ready, get changed. He had to plan matches with his tag partner, Martin Kirby, as against Cyanide, big wrestler, and Rampage Brown, one of the best wrestlers in the country. So can you imagine the stress of like getting there 5 minutes before and wrestling these three wrestlers, including Rampage Brown in the final of this show? And it was such an immaculate performance. It's still probably my favorite True Grit show I've ever put on. It was great, and Trav got through to the final, and his match with Rampage was amazing, and they both got standing ovation afterwards. And it was actually, nobody knew at this point except for Trav and some people very close to him, he had actually been diagnosed with cancer before that show. So he knew that he had cancer. And there he is putting on three of like the best matches ever against these three wrestlers, like real hard hitting matches, and one of the probably the performer of the night. And he had already been diagnosed with cancer. And I always think of that when I think of like even the ethos of the company, True Grit, like that's a proper True Grit story. So that's me knowing him later on in a bit more of a professional light, and I think that just shows like the strength of character that he really had, and the fact that he was such a fighter, and he was such a fighter. Like that's just one example. Like him before he got ill, he was, the amount of passion and he put into his matches was crazy. Like I wasn't around at this point, but when he was at PCW, I've heard stories of him just going like above and beyond and like taking ridiculous bumps, just because he just had passion for it, and he always did, and he was always like that in training. Like he was the guy that was like, he was getting thrown around, and like he got so, people might not realize this, some other guests may have said it, but he got so nervous and worked up before matches, because deep down he was quite a shy guy, even though he was very sort of quite confident later on in life. And he used to, because I get nervous before matches, but he was something else. Like he'd be hyperventilating, and he would do like, he'd got planned like such risky stuff, and then he'd go out there and he'd pull it off, and it was just fantastic. And again, like I think before, like that showed his sort of his tenacity and sort of fighting against his sort of his physical illness that he had, the True Grit show. But I think even before that, when he was fully healthy, him every show fighting against his insecurities and his demons of even performing these risky stunts in front of people, I think just again shows what character he really had.
Oh, definitely. I mean, like you sort of said, just kind of touch upon the PCW stuff. I went to a lot of PCW shows at the time, and like him versus T-Bone was like match, show stealer over time. The matches he had with
I've watched them. Yeah, I've seen them online. I was not in the country at that time, but I've seen them.
Finn Balor, for people who don't obviously only know him as Finn Balor, and Chris Masters as well.
That one.
But anytime, it's just nobody else had mentioned. I didn't really know that much about the nervousness. I kind of like to think that I kind of knew him on a certain level, but I'm not was nowhere like, a good friend kind of thing. He was just somebody that I liked, and we spoke a lot and bounced ideas off of. But yeah, I was never aware of the nervousness, and that amazes me. You can look at somebody who seems so confident, and so just the dude was like awesomeness. And yeah, but even he felt insecure at times.
And I don't know, because later on I didn't wrestle on the same shows as him, like when he was quite famous, because I took my time out. But I suspect he got better at masking it, and he appeared a lot more confident. But I know certainly young Travis used to get very, very nervous and worked up, and he fought that. And it just shows, like, someone who does come across as like confident like that, that's inside, they still can be feeling like that.
Hey guys, this is Fiery Sparks, and this is my story about the late great Kris Travis. Now, this is a really difficult one because there's so many stories that I'd like to talk about, but the one I want to talk about is the day when Kris Travis returned to the ring from stomach cancer. It was Phoenix Events, Yorkshire, August 2015 at the Queen's Road Social Club in Sheffield. I was on that show, so I knew what was happening, but the pop that Kris Travis had for his return to the ring was absolutely unreal. There were over 300 people at that venue welcoming Kris Travis back, and it looked like that he did not lose a step whatsoever. Kris, I wish you were here, mate, but I know you're looking down on me, and I know that you're proud about what I'm doing. Fire!
This end of September or beginning of October 2014. And I just had 2 sessions of chemotherapy with mine. And he just says, I'm just about to start chemotherapy. But send me all your prayers and best wishes. So I just sent a message and just said, I've just had 2 sessions. If you need to know anything, just let me know. And I can give you some the old side effects. And within a couple of minutes, it said, Kris Travis is following you on Twitter, which knocked me through the floor because I'm like, oh, hold on a minute. I've got a famous wrestler here. Whoa, hold on. And next thing, the message came and it said, hi, pal, I need to know one thing. When does my hair fall out? And then his hair fall out. And then I said, well, it's 2 weeks after the first one. So then he forgot everything about what I told him about his hair falling out. And I said to him, yeah, you could have warned me. I says, why? He says, I got ready to go out. He says, everything was fine. He said, I got ready. I got the gel in my hand, went through my hair, and I pulled my hands away, and all my hair was in my hands. The whole my hair just started to fall out. And I went, you think you got problems? And then I told him the funny story about mine, because when you lose your hair, you lose it everywhere. And I found out the hard way. But the only place that we always said to each other, as long as we keep his eyebrows, I don't care. I said, because I don't want to look surprised for 4 months. And he's like, yeah, that's a good point. So we're looking at each other. And I remember him saying, because I've asked Whitney if she can get me any eyeliner in case my eyebrows fall out. And I'm like, you're joking. And he says, no, I'm not. He says, I've all got it planned in case I lose hair in certain places. I've got it all planned. And I'm like, I've got to see you with eyeliner. I have to see you with eyebrow liner and all that. He goes, no, it's not going to happen. And he was asking us, he said, should he put Sharpies? Remember saying, should we put Sharpies for his eyebrows? And I'm like, you can't put Sharpies. And he's like, I'll do anything. If it means me losing my eyebrows, I'll do any color with my eyebrows. And we had this thing that we were going to do on blue or something like that. But that was one of the stories I had. Another one of buying him an original Xbox for his wedding present, and his wife going, what am I going to do with original Xbox? I says, well, I've got your 2 controllers. So, and he says, I said, you got a couple of games there, and he was over the moon at that, but I don't think Whitney was. But he was a one-off. The wrestling stories, I mean, there's not too many people can say in their resume within the space of 3 years you've got Kevin Owens, Finn Balor,
Chris Masters.
Chris Masters, all these guys. It's like all well-known people, and Davey Richards, and all the Ring of Honor guys, Samoa Joe. And then, I mean, the matches I remember of him was like with Lionheart and T-Bone, and Martin Kirby was another one. The comeback one with Shea Samuels at PCW, and then in winning the tag titles in St. Neots at Southside 2 days later. That weekend, he was mental because he went from Preston up to Scotland to do Lionheart's promotion, PPW, and then he drove all the way down to Cambridgeshire and did St. Neots. So Preston, Scotland, and then Cambridgeshire in 3 days. I was like, he's doing the miles here. So that was a really, really cool bit to see. But the worst thing you could say to him was, oh, you're not going to do it. Because as soon as you said the cancer, it was like, yeah, I mean, the famous picture I remember him seeing him was like, he was having his chemo and he put his picture up his body when he first went into the gym. And then he put it up again about 3-4 weeks later. And we went, look at the difference he's done. And he's done it in 4 weeks. And that's when the famous person came out who said that, did Kris Travis really have cancer? To which this day, I still offer that Torag £500 to get in the ring with me for 5 minutes. A lumberjack match. I've put it now since day one of that one. But I think he just had this style. He had this grace of it. I mean, no one else could say, oh, everybody used to say, oh, they used to be announced like coming from Birmingham or coming from Sheffield or coming from Chesterfield. Not Kris Travis. It was from the centre of his own personal interest. Like, hold on, did I just hear right? And he did it different. I mean, nobody came out to music like when we said to me that he picked his game. He picked his music because he was playing Tony Hawk's 3, and then he heard CKY on it, and I'm like, serious? And when he tells a story about that, the interview that I've still got with him, and when we're talking about it, and he just says, oh yeah, he says I was just into play video games, and I went, everybody's got heavy metal. I'm gonna have something different. And then CKY came about, and he was over the moon at that one.
Yeah, I could say, I remember hearing that story and thinking it would either be CKY or Anthrax Public Enemy. I'm pretty certain that was on Tony Hawk's 3 as well, and they were like the 2 standout tracks in that game.
It's his fault I got into retro gaming. It's his fault because he said to me, I think it was Adam Curtis that put this message out that said, Kris is into his retro gaming. If anybody's got any stuff around their lives or anything like that, and they want to donate it, have a look. And it just so happens that my cash converter had a few Super Nintendo games in it. So I gave them to Adam, and then he gave them to Kris and everything. And all of a sudden, he was like, have you got any retro ones? I went, the only retro one I've got, mate, is an Xbox 360. Oh, you need to go back. And the next thing, somebody donated all these old consoles, and he went, that's it now, you're blown. And as soon as I started playing GoldenEye and then 64, that was it. Everything was just second nature to both of us. But we went to see Sheffield Wednesday. Dale Harvey gave us 2 tickets. He had donated for his Travis, and he bought the tickets to see Sheffield Wednesday. So we decided to go on the last day of the season to play Leeds. And we were both sat there, and he turns up in this little Sheffield Wednesday jersey and this hoodie, and it's bloody freezing, both of us. And we're like, is the match like, it should be bloody summer here. And he's like, God, mate, look at it. And both of us I've got this picture of both of us with his hoodies up. And he's looking at his phone, and I'm like, going, this is supposed to be bloody warm, this. And he just says, and they were just telling me about all these things he's doing. We work with Cavendish Cancer Care and everything. He persuaded me to part with 65 quid for a Steve Austin signed DVD of a film I've never bloody heard of. So, and he just says, oh, little Steve Austin signed that. And I went, yeah, I'll go and I'll give you 60. I thought I'll bid 65 quid. No one else ever bleeding bid, so I gave him the bloody money. And I'm like, I've never heard of this film. What's this? What? And he said, that's Steve Austin's autograph. I went, oh, well, fair enough then. So, but that was in the days before soccer and spandex. Otherwise, that was one of the good ones. Especially telling him, that was a cracker, telling him about soccer and spandex that we're doing it, and then few months that we did, because I just said to me, and I always remember him saying, he says, well, if I can get £1,000, I can buy a scooter. And I went, well, there we go. We'll try and get you £1,000 for your scooter. So, and when we did the final total, and it was like 1,250, I just looked up at the sky and I went, we got your scooter, sunshine. We had your scooter. And
that's it. If anybody's listening and they're not aware, obviously, the awesome stuff that you did with, soccer and spandex, shed loads of money raised, obviously, in memory of Kris and for Cavendish. And I managed to get to a couple of them, and they were absolute belters. And it was nice to see people turn up, for a good cause, but in memory of as well.
Yeah, it's a shame we've not had it this year. We couldn't get a venue, couldn't find a venue in Sheffield to do it for us, and so it was going to go to Mansfield, but the Mansfield one just fell through. So it's going to come back if we can get a venue. If we can find a venue, then all systems go. But it's just finding one that accommodates us. But soccer and spandex was just like, I said, oh, we're doing this football match for it, and he says, what we do? I says, are we playing it? I says, well, everybody said, oh yeah, you should. The one thing that inspired me to do it was every time I saw a message from a wrestler to Kris, it was, you should come and see me. And it hit a note with me, and I'm going, well, this lad's got cancer. He's struggling with chemotherapy. He won't have strength to get on a bus anyway. Never mind that. So why is everybody wanting to say, you come to me? Why don't we go to him? And that was the one thing that had me with spandex, because everybody's saying, oh, we've got this venue down south. And I went, yeah, but it's no good for Kris to come. So that's why we picked Sheffield, because A, I'm from Sheffield anyway. And B, it was just, it's where Kris lives. I mean, it was like, that's his home. So wherever we did with spandex, it always had to be Sheffield, because it's where Kris was. And the reaction to the first one was just out of this world. I think, looking back, the people that we've had turning up at it, and because of Kris's name, I mean, Alan Kilby, Sheffield wrestling legend from the 80s and World of Sport, Kendo Nagasaki, and we've had all the British lads there that went on to NXT, Ashton Smith, Joe Connors, T-Bone, the lot with the people that we've had coming in, and the prizes through Joe and Michelle and everybody that's donated prizes. I mean, the Mick Foley one on the first one was just outstanding. That was one of the, I was having a chat with Mick Foley and going, I'm actually chatting with this. I'm actually chatting with bloody Mick Foley here, and that's going to be one of the things. And he was such a nice guy. But
well, that's because of Kris. That's because of Kris stood for, and the legacy that he's left, and people just wanting to pay tribute. I mean, I remember Cody Hall or Cody
Cody Rhodes,
Cody Rhodes, doing that picture.
Yeah, and Tommaso Ciampa, did that T-shirt, and it raised money for him. And I think, I look back at it, and I know exactly what I was when I was told when I heard the news. Just woke up. It was 10:30 on the morning. There was a soap done by Southside that was raising money for the centre that I had my cancer at. They was doing a show that day in Huntingdon, and was told and got told up and rung up. And Adam Curtis told me to ring Dale Harvey, and I rang Dale, and he was in tears. And then he says, "Yeah, he's gone." And I went, and I just burst into tears. And I just remember seeing Styx, Ligero, Mark Adams, Pete Dunne, Tegan Knox, both Nixon Newell, all these guys. I mean, all these guys. Cedric Alexander was there, and all these guys just there for one reason. And we was all there to raise money, but then the thing with Kris just took it over. And I think always through his career, Kris always stood out. He wasn't this what people thought was a British wrestler. He was chiseled. He looked after himself. If there was a hair out of place, I think the famous, I don't know whether it's true, but I think Steve Fludder said this one. He said, we was also getting set to do the show, and all of a sudden, power just went out. And we're like, and he says, what's up? And he says, no. And you could see it was Kris straightening his hair with his straighteners. And he goes, who's put under that? And Chris went, I need this. And he goes, you've knocked out the power for the show. I need this. Unplug it now. Yeah, in 5 minutes when I'm finished. No, now. And he held up the show for 5 minutes because he was doing his hair with his straighteners. And you're thinking, where does this guy come from? I mean, the funny
centre of
story.
his own self-importance, man.
Yeah, I think Rob Moultman's got a cracker because I think I told you before. We was at speaking and somebody from the audience shouted Justin Bieber, and he was hooking up with Mark Haskins, and he went, "Hold on a minute, hold on, stop." And he went, "I'll have you know that Justin Bieber is a very respectable artist." And went back into the hold, and all you could see is Haskins going up and down because he's laughing that much, and you're thinking he was bored. I mean, what gets me is he was on the verge of the TNA business when all this started, when all these illnesses started, and we're thinking, if he hadn't have had that cancer that time, where would Chris be now? And it's frightening. I think when we had that surge of World of Sport, and we had the NXT UK, and we had all these things where people were going, and TNA and everybody, and all these British lads were just going here, there, and everywhere. And it's one of the things I always sit back and I go, I wonder where he'd have gone. I wonder where he went. And I was thinking he'd have gone to World of Sport because his mates were there, like Joey Hayes and Martin Kirby and Danny Hope and all them. I think he'd have gone with them lads. And then he'd have done NXT UK easy.
I think he would have been in an NXT prior to World of Sports. Dude, if I'm honest with you, I think he would have made the jump stateside prior to World of Sports. So you say the TNA thing, would have been in TNA for a little bit, and then he'd have turned up in NXT, I reckon.
Yeah, because just imagine him now with doing because what it gets me is you look at Finn Balor and you're like, Finn's not exactly the biggest guy in the world, but look what he is now, and you're thinking that could have been Chris easy. I mean, Chris with Rhea Ripley would have been hilarious now. I mean, I look about it, if anything's perfect for that, it'd have been him. But it just makes me smile, the fact that Chris wasn't on this planet very long, but the contribution he made only while he was here, people still talk about him. People still remember him. They still watch the matches, for God's sake. They still got them things about it. I mean, I think I've listened to the interview that I did with him when we was just free, both of us free of cancer. And we did it on British Wrestling Radio, and it's still on YouTube, and it's still there. And I've listened to it about twice because it's just to hear his voice. It's just to hear him talking. And it just makes you feel as though it's like at some point in this world, we was on the verge of getting that Warrior Award with him. That was one of the things. Me, Lauren Woodward, and Rob Moultman just sat down at a show and just went, we're going to get him in Warrior Award, and we came that close, and we came so close to getting it for him. He's one of these people that you just smile and you think, yeah, that's him. The matches he did was just, even when he dislocated his shoulder at PCW, when he wrestled next day in Huntingdon, is part of the main event against the Predators with Kirby as part of Project Ego. So he was like, and I remember saying to him afterwards, how's your shoulder? And he goes, oh, it's fucked, mate. It's totally fucked. So I can't move it. And I says, are you wrestling tomorrow? He goes, I'm supposed to be in Speed King. And then him and Ben Old had a bit of a fallout about it. So he weren't wrestling for Southside for a few months, but then he got back involved and everything. So, but it's a thing. A lot of people remember him. A lot of people should honor him and remember him as always, because there will never be another one like him. There was just one of these people that just came in, and no matter what he did, as soon as you heard 96 Quite a Bit of Beans, you knew who was coming. And everybody just stopped and just looked at him. And whether there was 20 people in that place, whether there was 200, 2,000, you knew you was going to get a 5-star match with him every single time. It's the sound that Kevin Ferd, I think his name. I think I forgot his second name. Kevin Thorne, that's it. And he holds him in stuff like such good stead. And all these people on Twitter and all these, it's not Twitter, it's X, innit? It's X now. So, but he just made everybody smile. I think at the end of the day, it was like, he was just one of them guys that You knew what you was going to get. He always had time for people. Once you became friends with him, that was it. You were friends for life with him. And I only knew him for a small amount of time. But for that amount of time, he was amazing to me. He always thought of others, and he always will. And we thought the world of him, and we always will. Never change.
Exactly.
Sure. So it's hard to sort of, like I said before we started recording, it's very difficult to narrow it down just to one or two stories. Because I knew Trav pretty much since the second session I ever had at a wrestling school in 2001, all the way through to the time that he passed. So that's 15 years of knowing each other.
Yeah.
And seeing each other on a really, really regular basis. So when you asked me last week about doing this, I started trying to think of specific stories that people might find entertaining. But in all honesty, it was hard to sort of pinpoint stuff, and a lot of that comes from, number one, we spent so much time together, but number two, a lot of the sort of dumb little silly stuff that I found funny or he found funny might not necessarily translate to a lot of people, because we there was a lot of time spent together traveling and backstage at shows and stuff, and there was so many daft little in jokes or dumb little impressions or stupid voices or little sayings and stuff like that to us sort of helped form the connection that we had. But to I guess a wider sort of audience would kind of be lost, as it were. And it's like I say, it's hard to just sort of narrow it down to one thing, but and I'm sure you've got this general vibe from the majority, if not all the people you've spoken to. But he was just great. He was just such he was just such a great person to be around all the time. Someone who, even when he went through periods of being constantly pissed off with his own matches, or maybe the caliber of people he was working that weekend or whatever, he was someone that even in a negative mood could still make everyone else feel positive, if that makes sense. Just because he would, the way he would verbalize his frustration or his dissatisfaction with certain things was so entertaining that would have everyone else in stitches. And he was just a constantly positive influence and a constantly positive person to have around. There was times where once a month or so, or once every 2 months or whatever the regularity was, me, him, Martin Kirby and Joey Hayes would all travel up to Scotland to do shows for Pro Wrestling Elite, which was Lionheart's company. And this was before I drove, and I spent years bumming lifts off people and stuff. And there was a long time where Kirby, to his credit, drove me a lot of places. And the order would be that Kirby would pick me up super early in the morning, because obviously we've got to go all the way up to Ayr in Scotland, which is a fairly long trek. And Kirby would come pick me up really early, and then we'd drive down to Sheffield to pick Trav up, then across towards the Manchester area to get Joey, and then up to Scotland. And the amount of times that we'd roll up to Trav's house in Sheffield at 7, 8 in the morning, and there was on more than one occasion where he'd just got home from a night out about an hour before we were picking him up, and he would roll into the car. And Kirby at the time had a Ford KA, and he would he'd slump on the back seat, and he was a bit worse for wear, to put it diplomatically. And a lot of people would spend the entire 4, 5, 6 hour journey just completely on their arse and asleep and grumpy and miserable. But no matter how sleep deprived he was, or how rough he was feeling, or whatever drama had taken place the night before, he'd always just have us howling with laughter on the way up and the way down. And that's just who he was. He was just constantly entertaining. There were times when I did start driving, where I can remember like driving back from shows in the car, like nearly swerving off the road, like tears in my eyes of laughter, just the stories that he'd tell or the impressions that he'd do. And he was someone that you would, so in wrestling, you would spend a lot of time with a lot of the same people on a really regular basis. And there were some people that maybe you'd spend a Friday to Saturday to Sunday with, and you do long journeys with. And by the time the Saturday journey had finished, you'd pretty much exhausted the conversation that you could get out for that weekend or whatnot. If you see someone that amount of times, the conversation inevitably sort of, take a lull. Yeah, but with Trav, it was just different. Like, he was just always on, he was just always entertaining. He was someone that you'd like consciously look forward to seeing, because you knew how pleasant the journey would be, just because of like the amount of like fun and entertainment that he'd bring. And when you're asking about like stories and stuff, I was the butt of a lot of jokes a lot of the time. And, as entertaining as Trav was, and as wonderful as a person as he was also a fucking menace a lot of the time, especially when him and Kirby would get together. And there was a couple of different little ribs that they would consistently play on me a lot of the time. One of which was I used to like be so fucking unorganized and like uncool when it came to like the way I'd like transport stuff to shows and stuff. You see like the bigger names with these, like lush like travel suitcases and stuff like that. Everyone is arriving looking like real professional. I would have a bag, but I would also like carry a lot of my food in like Tesco carrier bags and stuff. Like, I'd stock up at a shop or something before we hit the road. And I lost track of it. And so I'd have like a bag, a Tesco's bag full of, like whatever meals I used to eat, because I didn't, I wasn't smart enough to pay attention enough to like proper eating back then, nutrition, everything. So I'd have like just whatever, yogurts, fucking a sandwich, whatever it was. Doesn't really matter what the contents of the bag are, but they were full of stuff. And the amount of time I'd come backstage from a match to find the bag handles ripped so you couldn't pick the bag up anymore. And it was only like a really stupid little thing. It was like a little annoyance, but I knew it was them every time. I knew it was Kirby and Trav that had done it, just purely to see my reaction when I came backstage, for me to just go like, oh, not again. So that was one. But the more irritating one was, and again, it's so stupid and it's so dumb, and most people probably wouldn't even find it funny, but they also got into this like little obsession with, so I would travel to a show in normal people clothes, and that would involve having like tracksuit bottoms on or shorts, and I'd have, socks and trainers. But the socks that I would wrestle in were different. They were like hiking. They were thicker socks, basically, to fit in my boots and like provide a bit more protection or stability to my ankles or whatever. So it meant that I would take my regular socks and my trainers and leave them backstage with the rest of my gear and stuff. And on more, they started developing this little habit of, I would come backstage from a match, I'd get all, tidied up and like talk with my opponents or whatever afterwards, and like go through the usual stuff that you go through after a match, and get showered and everything like that, and get changed, like to get back into my civilian clothes. And they developed this little habit of hiding one of my socks after every match, and they would never tell me where they were. And it was, again, it's such like a little minor irritant, but I would spend ages walking around the venue looking for like just one little sock. So I couldn't put my shoes on without it, or I just had to have one sock. And this went on for months and months and months. And I remember like it got to a point and this was like years ago, obviously. It got to a point where my mum, of all people, like started kicking off with me. And I remember like knocking on my door one morning, and me opening like my door, and she said like, "Will you tell your friends to stop stealing your socks? Because I'm trying to do your washing here, and I can only find like a sock in each pair, sort of thing." And again, it's a stupid little thing that won't mean anything to other people in the grand scheme of things. But it was just like little irritants like that he was just such a warm-hearted person, but just like a terror as well at the same time.
But that kind, I read wrestling books. I watch all the backstage stuff and whatnot. But that sounds very reminiscent of like Owen Hart. If you ever read anything about Owen Hart, the Duke Menace,
Sure.
like if you read like you read any Foley autobiographies or Austin or
absolutely
something like that, it just sounds very much like the same sort of thing, where it's just little things here and there, to make you laugh or just kind of annoy you, but that smile on your face.
That's the thing. He was never ever spiteful with anything. He was never like cruel-hearted to anyone or anything like that. He was just a nuisance, and he knew that it was just like a little thing to needle you. He would never do anything to like upset anyone or like intentionally make someone feel bad or anything like that. But because I'd known him for so long and we were close, he knew that he could sort of get away with just like sort of needling it, because he knew that like I wasn't gonna kick off about it as such, but he knew that it would wind me up and it would like get under my skin and irritate me. But yeah, it was all like sort of very harmless, good-natured fun. So yeah, I totally get the comparison there.
You knew you'd get the payoff was just that head shake and just seeing your head drop a little bit and just shake and be like,
oh yeah, 100%. Kirby and Trav, like knowing that they were going to see me like defeated was the payoff to it. Like you say, the shoulders go down. It's like, not again, and it just became like a regular thing. He and I used to joke that when we first started at the same training school, we were the two. Everyone else was like either older or more experienced or like bigger or in better shape, and we were the two sort of like skinny kids. Like I was 16 when I started the school, and I think he was like a little bit older than me as well. Like so we were still young and we were skinny and pale. And I think because like I know this is sort of like going off on a tangent and such, but like, I always looked up to him like when I started, because even though we were of like similar age and stuff, like he could do more athletic stuff than I could. I was still skinny and small, but and but he could do like all this like great athletic stuff, and people that sort of started around the same time as him will probably tell you similar. But because we were the sort of two sort of cruiserweights, as it were, I think some people thought that like, oh, they'll have like they'll have good matches with each other, and it became a bit of a running joke between the two of us for years that we had awful chemistry with each other for a long period of time. Like I think some of it was like we would try and like either outdo the other one or just try and do too much, like more than we were capable of. And like when at the time we had people like Johnny Storm and Jody Fleisch having these like amazing like revolutionary like back and forth cruiserweight matches, and then you had like American guys like Loki and Amazing Red and stuff doing similar. We kind of like thought, oh well, we could do stuff like that, even though we didn't have half the ability of those guys. And so for years we would often say to each other like, we've got really awful chemistry, with terrible matches with each other. It never clicked ever. After a while, like years later, it did start clicking. But when I was trying to think of like a story, and again, this is something out of nothing really, but I remember once sort of kind of tied in with him constantly like needling me and finding ways to sort of like wind me up and like have a laugh at my expense. We did this show in Hull one afternoon. It was on like a Thursday or a Friday or a Wednesday. It was midweek anyway, and it was outside. and they had the ring set up. It was like an NGW show, and it was to help promote NGW, who was starting to sort of like grow at the time. And they had the ring set up on like one of the sort of grass fields outside of the football stadium. And I think there must have been a game that day. And I think as people are walking up towards, the stadium and stuff, there's like a wrestling show going on. So it was like 5 matches, I think. It was like 4 singles matches. And then all the guys from the singles would all get together and do like an 8-man tag for the main event. And the show was dreadful. Absolutely, it was appalling. Like, because there was no one watching it. Like, the first like couple of matches, you maybe had like 15, 20 people watching out of like morbid curiosity. But by the time like the main event came around, all of that interest had gone completely. And there was probably 5 or 6 people stood at ringside watching, and they probably were involved with NGW, and they would just sort of probably help set the ring up. And it got to a point where it was like a little bit embarrassing. But anyway, so we roughly planned the 8-man tag. And it was very bare bones and very basic, and it wasn't like Survivor Series or anything like that. It was like 1 fall. And I said, I think I was the most experienced babyface on the team, on my side at the time. And I said, we'll all do like a little shine, and then I'll take the heat. And then we'll give the least experienced babyface the hot tag, because it's a lot easier for experienced heels to bump around for an inexperienced babyface than it is for like an inexperienced babyface to sell like convincingly and sympathetically. So it's easy for the heels to take the bumps. So there was a lad who later on became a referee for NGW on our team, on the babyface team, and he was going to take the heat. So he gets in the ring, we're all doing like our little shines and whatnot, and he gets in the ring to do his shine, and for whatever reason, in his shine, he got cut off. And I don't know why, but I was on the apron, and I just said, okay, well, you're taking the heat now. Not to be a dick, but it was just, easier that way. It's like, well, you've got yourself cut off, and we might as well go into the heat now, and then we'll just ad lib a hot tag or whatever. And there were so few people watching by this point that we could very easily get away with just like calling stuff very loudly to each other, because who cares as there's nobody watching. So I'm on the apron on the babyface team. Trav is on the heel team, and we're the 2 most experienced guys in the match. So the lad who's taking the heat, like called James Tyler, who's the babyface's name, he's having the heat put on him. And I shouted across to Trav, like shouted, because again, no one's watching, so no one cares. So I shouted across to Trav, if I take the hot tag, will you bump and feed for me? And Trav from the other side of the ring just said, yeah. So they ad-libbed some sort of hot tag, some sort of double down with James Tyler and another heel. So I get the tag for the baby faces. Trav gets the tag for the heels. So I come steaming in, and like anyone who's ever had any sort of like wrestling experience or anything like that, if I'm a baby face and you're a heel and I'm running towards you with my arm like that, I normally do a clothesline, right? So I'm expecting to come steaming in and hit Trav with a clothesline. And because we've been wrestling for a few years now, we can easily just ad-lib it, a little bump and feed, and we can talk and get to the next point that we need to get to. So I come in all guns blazing, I swing this clothesline expecting to feel the contact of hitting Trav and having him bump. And instead, I come in and all I can feel is wind and daylight, because Trav has ducked underneath the clothesline and put me in a full Nelson and cut me off, all the while nearly crying with laughter, knowing that he's done it again. And again, I can't remember how the rest of the match progressed. I'd imagine it was all awful. But that was, again, it's a nothing story, really, at the end of the day. But it's just, I can still, and this is like, I don't know, like 2010 or something like that. And my years might be way off there, but like, I'm sure it was around then. And even though it was like 13 years ago or something like that, I can still hear him like laughing when he's ducked underneath and put me in a full Nelson and just completely like stopped any momentum that I might have had. And that's what I mean. He was just a menace of a human being, but in the most wonderful way possible.
Talking to JC, and he was telling me about best movies on top of a car and stuff like that as well. So
that's kind of what I mean in that, like, all these like daft little in jokes. So when like a group of people spend so much time together over the years and whatnot, you inevitably come up with like dumb little stuff to keep each other entertained on long drives, or, you know, like sat backstage for hours at places and stuff. And to sort of like, I guess like the outside world or people that don't sort of understand how that you know, lifestyle is, that might seem a bit, you know, like, well, I don't understand why that's funny, but, you know, to us it was just like a little part of like bonding as a group, I guess. And like, I always knew Trav in sort of like friendship groups, as it were. There was always like a group of us that would, like, you know, be together. Like when we first started out, you know, like me, Trav, JC, a guy called Scotty Hex, a guy called Cameron Knight, and a guy called Jack Hazard would all, you know, travel to shows together. We all started out in Sheffield, and then we all sort of started branching out into like places like Wigan for like GPW and a couple of other places. And then like in later years, it was like me, Trav, Kirby, Danny Hope, Joey Hayes, and CJ Banks. And again, we'd all, you know, like travel together and stuff like that, and go to all these different shows and see each other, you know, weeks in and weeks out, like constantly. And, you know, like I say, you spend that much time together, you're going to have these, you know, daft little ways of bonding with each other. So it's a testament to his ability as well that, like, he you know, backstage, he was a very, very entertaining person. But when it came time, you know, like when the red light goes on, as they say, like he was so phenomenal at like flipping the switch and going out there. And it just a fantastic talent. I know there were times like where like Trav would get like, you know, like frustrated at like not getting like certain things that, like, not that he felt he was entitled to by any stretch, but like that he knew that he was working just as hard for, if not more, than others. But then like when a place like, you know, Preston came around and they really started highlighting him, like, this isn't like it's not a funny story as such, but it's not like a long story or anything, but like the first time that PCW brought in Chris Masters, I don't think Chris had a great reputation on the indies. Like, he was never a dick or anything like that, but he could be a little bit, a guy that looked like Chris Masters, who was on WWE TV and like working with like Triple H and Shawn Michaels and all these big names, then coming on to like a British indie where a lot of the guys are a lot smaller and, you know, have like a much more like diminished frame compared to him, and haven't had those, you know, big star moments. I can understand why he'd come in with a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, is a nice way to put it. And the first time that Chris came in, he wasn't like hostile backstage or anything like that, but at the same time, he wasn't like one of the guys, you know, sort of thing. And I think he looked at Trav at the time as like a bit of a, like, I don't know if this kid's going to be any good sort of thing. And almost like it was like a labor or a chore to like work with him. And the difference between like Chris going out for that match and then Chris coming backstage from that match was just night and day, because Trav gave him like one of the best matches, if not the best match that Chris had in his career. And I think those Chris Masters matches and like the early Lionheart matches, PCW in general gave Trav like such like a boost in his career. But I think it showed a lot of people what a lot of us already knew, which is just how good he was. But it was really rewarding to see like it get highlighted and it get, you know, the eyes on it that it should have done, because especially at the time, you know, like PCW was drawing in, you know, like 800 people a month every 2 months, and then Trav was, you know, the centerpiece of a lot of those shows. And, you know, he went on with guys like Masters and like, you know, like Fergal Devitt and all like these big names he had all these like killer matches with, and he earned like every moment of the accolades he got through that company. And it was very, very rewarding to see, because he'd been around for a long time at that point. And it was, you know, he deserved the plaudits that he got. And obviously that led on to, you know, other stuff that helped highlight him even more, like boot camp and stuff like that. And obviously, I know this has like been said, like, you know, like on a fairly regular basis, but it is very true, is that like if Trav had, you know, if what happened hadn't happened, World of Sport would have undoubtedly have come calling. NXT UK, would undoubtedly have come calling. And that was, and he fully deserved that, if not more. So, show that like X-Pac did was a Southside show, and it was X-Pac and Robbie X against Trav and Kirby. And again, this was the first time that a lot of us had met Sean. And Sean is a wonderful, wonderful person, an absolutely lovely guy. But again, at the time, which was like 2013, I think, didn't have like a sterling reputation as far as like how he was on like indie shows backstage and stuff. And you hear rumors and you hear stories, and like the sort of word on the street, as it were, is that he was like quite temperamental and like a bit moody and like not great to be around backstage. Those rumors are false, because he's absolutely lovely. But again, when you don't know someone, you're a little bit trepidatious, especially when they're like the guy from TV and you're like, a bunch of like indie British wrestlers.
Yeah.
But he went out there and had that tag match in the main event. And I think Sean, I'm talking about here, was so made up with like just how good it was and how great both Kirby and Trav were. Because like both Kirby and Trav, I know this was like, it's about Trav, the podcast, but like, both Kirby and Trav have in Kirby's case, I'd imagine still, such a wonderfully smart brain for British wrestling, that a lot of British wrestlers would have gone out there with an import like X-Pac and thought, well, I want to like impress this guy, and I want to get all my, I want to do my cool shit so I get over with him. Whereas the smart thing to do and the right thing to do is X-Pac is the reason why the majority of people have paid for a ticket there. He's the guy of TV that all the adults in the crowd have like grown up seeing. So he should be highlighted in the match. People can see Trav or Kirby or whoever, British wrestlers, moves or entrance or, like comeback or whatever every single day of the week. Someone like X-Pac coming in is a special occasion, so he should be highlighted in it. And I think Sean was really grateful that Trav and Kirby were smart to that, and that's how the match was structured. And again, it's just a testament to just like how good he was, that Trav was really easily able to put his stuff aside and highlight, someone like Sean. So it's great to hear that like he was so high on him afterwards.
Yeah, no, he was, like I say, from what I've heard. But yeah, it's just, again, just everything, everything that you hear, it's all sort of positive and everything like that. So, dude, I've got no words. Thank you so much for just just chatting and telling stories and talking. I did originally say this was going to be a 5-10 minute chat.
It's okay. That's my fault. That's my fault.
No,
talk a lot.
Legitimately.
I would say as well, I just wanted to really quickly say, and it's obviously it's completely up to you whether you leave this in or not. But like, thank you for taking the time, to actually ask me to do this. So I don't have any involvement with wrestling anymore, and haven't for a couple of years. And I said to you, when you asked me last week, if made sure that it was something that you were comfortable with. And I hope that people, see the reason for doing this is to celebrate, as in like the reason to talk to me, sorry, is to celebrate, someone like Trav, and that's what it's about, and that's all it's about. It's not, some attempt to, like get back into wrestling or anything like that, or to be seen by the right people or any of that sort of bullshit. But no, I really appreciate you, coming to me and asking me, and I don't do podcasts or anything like that. I've been asked a couple of times in the past to do stuff, and I've not been particularly comfortable with it. More so than anything else is that I don't want the person who's doing the interview to like catch any sort of like flack or criticism or anything like that. So I sincerely hope that like nothing like that happens and you don't get any sort of criticism or anything like that. But no, I really appreciate you coming to me and asking me to do this. It's an honor to be able to do it and talk about him.
I don't remember the first time I met Trav. What I do remember is the second time I met him, I went up to him and I was like, "Hey, I'm Mark Haskins." And he shook my hand, looked at me and said, "Yeah, we've met before." And I felt terrible. And so I don't think I spoke to him for the rest of the day because I felt so awkward about it. So the third time that I met Trav, I walked up to him and I was like, hey, I'm Mark Haskins, trying to encourage a sort of a laugh out of him. And he just looked at me and said, oh, hey, I'm Kris Travis. And I don't think he ever understood that I was, trying to joke on the fact that I totally forgotten him the second time that we'd officially met. But I got to work with him a lot. I got to travel with him. I stayed at his house before. He had these, I remember he had dogs and he had cats, and one of his cats came in. It was really cold in the room that I was staying in. So, and Trav had said to me, if you see one of the cats in here, feel free to kick it out. And I thought to myself, no, it's freezing in here. I'm going to use it as a hot water bottle. So I got the cat to come over. It fell asleep on my chest and it helped keep me warm for the evening. And I remember a match in particular. We worked a good handful of times, but it was one match in particular that came up in my memories the other day where we were in a 6-man tag, and I can't remember who else was in the match, but I know that the Lion Kid was on the opposite team. So Trav had this spot that he wanted to do where he was going to get out wrestled by Lion Kid. He was going to storm off to the back and come back out in a monkey onesie. And he comes out to the ring and he's shouting at Lion Kid, you're not the king of the jungle, I am. And he's got this monkey onesie on and it's got a monkey head on the hood. And I keep, interacting with him. I'm like, Trav, what are you doing? And he keeps lifting the head up and going, no, Skins, it's me. And winking at me, and then carries on doing this, running this spot in the ring. And it actually ended up being, I can't remember what it was. I want to say that there was some kind of, whether it was a streamer or whether it was a toilet roll or something, somehow got caught up in the match, and it actually added to the spot that when Trav had been out wrestled by Lion Kid, he was bouncing around and he was wrapped up in whatever it was at the time, and there was just something that it couldn't have gone, the idea couldn't have gone any better. People ate it up, people loved it, and that's what I really miss is him and Kirby as Project Ego, is that they always had this. It didn't matter what they were doing on the show. It was always so entertaining. And it was just, they just had this magic that, I wish that they would, still around and able to give to people, because I think that what they did was fantastic. Now, I saw a very different side to Trav than a lot of people did, because I know before we started talking, you said that you'd heard that Trav had been quite the menace. And I remember that when my son Jack was first born, I took him to shows and I would show him off. But Trav would come and he if I ran into Trav backstage, he would see me and he would say, "Oh, hey, it's good to see you. Is Jack here?" And I'd say, "Yeah, he's just with Vic over at the merchandise stand." Trav would leave and go straight to Jack, and he would give him a hug, and he would carry him around the venue, and I would often find him just showing Jack different things. It might be, say, a board of posters of upcoming events at that show, and Trav would have him and would be pointing out all the different things and would be showing him off to everybody. And I've always tried to make sure that Jack remembers that, because he was only a few months old at the time. I wanted him to know just how much he meant to Trav, because Trav thought the absolute world of Jack, which was hilarious because Jack would often look so disappointed at Trav and turn and look the other way, and Trav would always give one of those big sort of reactions that he'd be like, "Oh, come on, mate," and it was always something that I've tried to remind Jack of, because Jack probably wouldn't remember, but Trav loved him and Trav thought he was amazing, and Trav would always take him around the venue and show him off to people and show him different things around. And I remember there was a match actually where we were in the match, and it was a tag match. It was P.E. Williams and myself versus Project Ego, and I don't know how this happened, but I think somebody in the crowd was shouting. They were on our side and they were saying, "Oh, we hate Project Ego, I want to fight them." And I said, "Go on then." So I got a fan into the ring, and then Project Ego got a fan on their side into the ring, and we're all kind of looking at each other like, I don't really know what's gonna happen next. This was completely, happening off the cuff. And then Project Ego get another guy into the ring, and I look over and I remembered something that Vic had said to me, is that Jack got upset that every time I get to the ring, I wouldn't make a big deal out of looking at him, or I wouldn't look over at him and what have you. So I start shouting, geeing it up. I'm like, "Oh, we're down one member, but don't worry, I've got a special weapon, a trick up my sleeve, and I shout, "Jackie boy!" And I look over at the merch table, and Vic looks over at me, and she's doing this because she just put Jack to sleep. And I'm like, oh no, I'm kind of on the spot here. So they wake Jack up and they bring him over, and Jack's just crying. He's not happy about this at all. He's only a few months old at the time. And Trav, bless him, he takes the t-shirt off and throws it at Jack, and then Jack's crying even more. And yeah, obviously in the moment he's looking at me in the ring and he's saying like, sorry, I kind of have to do something here. And we end up finishing the match, and at the end, Jack is sat on my lap in the ring, and we're, you know, flipping Trav off as he exits. And afterwards, of course, he goes over it. He feels guilty as hell, so he goes and makes a big fuss out of Jack and gives him lots of cuddles to make up for it. But that's the real thing that I miss about Trav, is just how entertaining. There was a genuine warmth from him. I know that he was a bit like Marmite to some people. Not everybody loved him, but I did. I thought he was great. I thought he was a fantastic talent. I'm just gutted he's gone.
No, that's amazing, dude. Thank you so much. You just kind of highlighted the essence of the point of this episode. Is it's just that warmth, that approachability, and just awesomeness. So that was amazing. Thank you so much.
No, man, good. Like, I remember one thing that is real important is I remember the last few days of his life, there was something that he said that has always stuck with me, and it's something that I've lived the past few years of my life by. And I remember he said, he looked back, he was looking back at his career and he was looking back at his life, and he said that he wished he just lived in the moment more, because he'd managed to do all these great things. He'd managed to wrestle his heroes. He'd managed to have all these great moments, all these big shows, and he was always thinking what was coming next. He was always worried about the next thing, and he never took that time to really just appreciate the now and really appreciate that moment. And it's something that I've always reminded myself of, because too often I think that we live in here rather than living in the moment. So he changed my life for sure, and it's something that I've gone on to tell other people, because I think it's a real important lesson to learn, is to just be present and just enjoy yourself and just appreciate where you are. You may not necessarily be where you want to be, but it's important to remember where you are and to appreciate where you are and to appreciate what it is that you're doing, and not to take these things for granted, because eventually time, runs out for us all. So enjoy the now, enjoy the moment, appreciate where you're at, and just live every day as it comes.
Definitely, dude. Wise words. Yes. I can't think of anything else to add to that that's going to be any better. So I'm just going to shut my mouth and say thank you for just chatting with me and being a part of this episode and telling me the stories, dude. So it is hugely appreciated.
My pleasure, man.
Reminders of just the kind of guy that Trav was.
Well, I'll start with maybe the good humour I had about you. I'm sure you'll get everyone will have like a similar kind of story. Just the way he was able to brighten it was able to brighten the room, and sometimes it'd be the most unusual ways. He'd just come out of anything, really. I remember we did a show in a venue called Dinnington, which had like a like a little local football team. Obviously, Trav being a football fan, and Chris Holmes, another wrestler, he doesn't wrestle anymore, but he was a big football fan. He goes to a lot of games now, and we made sure they had all the pictures with like the football kit they'd found, like the spare kit lying around. So yeah, they're supposed to be getting ready for like serious wrestling matches, and they're walking around with like football kits on, and it could be just something simple like that where brighten the mood, or the best ones are always the more spontaneous ones. Like there was time where we did a tag match. It was for what was it? I think it was Gavin Wilson Wrestling, which is like a precursor to Mega Slam done by Brad Flash, and it was the polite way to put it was it didn't draw. There were probably about 10 people in it, and we just decided to have a bit of fun. But
we're supposed to do like a running to set it all up and everything. We're gonna have like a manager on our side, a manager on there. So it was a brief women's match, and we'd say the baby face, of course. And Trav, for his own amusement, turned around and says, "I'm not running away from you, Mikey, unless you're armed." And it's like, so we look around and we're looking for anything we can grab. And the other wrestler, he wrestled for Red Throwers, Kenny Halfpenny, was now who were then known as Corey Green. And we found the nearest things, which is a metal pipe, and I found one of those, those old school coal shovels. They're like a little hand-sized one. And I'm getting ready to go out, and I'm looking how stupid of what I've got in my hand is, and I just go around to Corey and I go, "Swap this." We run out, we make the save, and I can see in Trav's eyes, his eyes are absolutely gleaming, but I've twigged on to the fact, oh, Mike didn't fall for the coal shovel. So it's just like little things like that, and it just brightened up the room whenever he was in it. It's like he could find his way to attach himself to anybody, like if it was like someone's kids, like the show, as soon as that's instantly everyone liked Uncle Trav. He's like, oh, the kids gravitate towards him, and the adults. It's just that he had that warmth that brought people in, and let's say his humor, obviously since his passing, has helped carry me through a lot of things, because I've gone through my own like little personal moment, but a few bad moments every now and then. But I could always think of what he'd say, and some of it would be quite dark humor, but it would be enough to, like snap me out of what a bad phase I was in, or sometimes it just like power me through. One was a more unusual thing. It was actually at Trav's funeral, where it's like his humor came out in my head as well a little bit. It was because I was one of the people who be carrying his coffin. And I just remember as we're all getting ready to, I think it's pallbearer, I don't know if that's an American term, I don't know what we call it over this neck of the woods, but I was looking around and I was just noticing all the people we carrying here. I'm looking at the eclectic mix of sizes of people here, because we've got Reigns, who's like, yeah, he's like 6'8" or something like that. We've got Trav's brother, who's like similar height to Trav, and 6'11". We've got one of his other mates who's like 5'8" or something like that. He just looked like such an uneven thing, and I'm like, I could almost hear his laughter in my head. And it's even there. I said to Joe, it's like he's loving this, and this moment that it's like I was being strong as I could, but I was getting ready to break. And when we got the coffin on the shoulder, I could see people in the front ground, and that was killing me. But the thing that powered me through it, of all the stupid things, is I heard Trav's voice, and I could hear him just almost as clear as he was there, and and I could always hear his voice say, "Don't drop me, lads." And it's just like, that's what powered me through. That powered me through that tough, intense moment. So it's like the humor carried through, and it was also that's a kind-hearted. It could be a bit fun about the way he go about it, but he was just that genuinely kind-hearted about things. It's that he always especially in wrestling training, he always wanted what was best for me, and he knew I could do better. And I'm sometimes been a bit guilty of self-sabotaging myself or not believing in myself at times. He always believed in me, and so sometimes during sessions he would get so mad with me. It's like he'd like verbally eviscerate me. Like he was so furious. He's like, "You're so proper ripping me to shreds." And then 10 minutes later, I get a text message. He never apologized in front of me. He always dropped me a text and he'd go, "I love you, right?"
It's not a good place.
And then and people don't always be like apologizing for me, but it's like I know why he's mad. He wants what's best for me, and we'll sort it out in a bit. But he'd give anybody the shirt off his back. He'd help loads of the guys if they were on shows near the local area. They'd stay over at his place. He'd find a way to connect to anybody. Yeah, and for a while, it took me a while to kind of like get used to that a bit, because it's like I dealt with, let's say, in the earlier stage of my friendship with Trav, I had a lot of like an inferiority complex about myself. He's like, why is this cool guy wanting to be my friend, that kind of thing. And it's, and I think he started to notice it, and it's just like, we found, I think as proper friends do, you work out people's idiosyncrasies, you know what I mean? It's like, it's like, yeah, they're like this because of this and stuff like that. And he accepted me for who I was and all my faults. It felt like he was one of the few people who understood who I was as a person and stuff like that. And I've had a lot of trouble getting it out to some other people. I've done better with it as I've got on, but it felt like he was the one who always understood. And it's yeah, and it's like through the wrestling training, or just something like in general in life or stuff like that. It's just he got into whoever you were as a person, and he just like he connected with you somehow. I mean, from your perspective, how you guys connected, it's like, I'm sure you can give your variation of how he connected to you. It's like whatever it was with that person, what he liked, it's starting with that little bit, wasn't it? It's like whatever it is, that connection. Then once he's there, it's like, oh, I really like you, you're my mate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's a common thread. From speaking to people, is like you sort of said, the shirt off the back. Always had time, and just made you feel good as well, kind of thing. Or it's like, it always kind of made you feel like you mattered, which is crazy, because when you're talking to him, it's like it was Kris Travis, for God's sake, but he seemed to you feel really important. It made you feel good. I just think that's a really warm kind of, that's a warmth that you don't get from a lot of people.
Like I say, it was definitely one of his his best characteristics. It's like he just brought you in with that warmth. It's but yeah, it's and like I say, if yeah, he just found a way to connect to you. It's just there was no set rhyme or reason. If he one of his mates, he loved you his mate, and he loved you no matter what. And that's a good quality, because I've found sometimes with people they kind of like, yeah, they're your friend, but they don't. They don't take the good for the bad kind of thing. It's like some people are convenient friends, aren't they, at times and stuff. It's but he was never like that. Never a convenient friend. He was always there for anybody. So it's like that. Obviously, the time when like Lionheart broke his neck, but for people who stayed with him in the hospital all the time was Trav.
Yeah,
and that was who he was as a person. So it's like we had another instance back in the one of the incarnations of one PW, one of the wrestlers had gotten injured, and as I say, had to go to hospital. And I made my way there with with somebody else, and Trav was there, and I think that was one of the moments because this was back, blimey, quite a while, 1 years. So we're talking the early 2000s, like 2008, 2009, something like that. Probably quite land the year, but I think this is one of the reasons me and Trav connected. We always got on well at shows. It were the polite hellos, the occasional bit of like chit chat, but nothing beyond that. But I think once he saw that was part of my character, I think was the fact that I went and spent hours at a hospital making sure this guy was okay and everything. I think that spoke true to him, and I think that's when we started connecting as friends a lot more. Obviously, when I started training with him, training was and he always pushed me really hard. But the one time I got him one time. So like, it was so hard to get him, whether it was getting him back for a joke or something like that. It was so hard to get him, and I loved it because we were doing basically this like little spot, and I'd already said to the guy, we're going to end this spot. I'm going to deliberately fall awkward so it looks like I've hurt myself. And I deliberately fall awkward, and I'd put all my life into this cell. It's like so. It's like I'm looking at corner of my hand. It's like, yes, Reigns hook, line, sinker, rod and copy of Angling Times, Red Dwarf joke for you there. And I'm like, look, and like it's Trav biting. Oh, I'm still selling it. And they're both getting it ring, and they go, they pull me up and help me up, and they're like, "Are you okay?" I'm going to do the spot where I go and hit my opponent from behind, and I could hear Trav going, "Fuck's sake." I actually got him. It was so rare. I actually got him. So there was, what if I always, because it was so rare, I got him the instant memories, like the, like I just said, I was just telling you the story how I once got Trav, but he always got me all the time. Like there were I remember when we last spoke, we talked about the whole Kevin Thorne thing. It was later. He later did tell me that to a certain point, there were no longer any. Well, they started working together and stuff like that. But he hadn't told me. So it was that one PW show, which incarnation I can't remember. But it was at the Sheffield Ice Ring, the one near the Sheffield Arena. I think it was like called City Steel Ice Rage, something like that. And yeah, then it was Trav and Kirby versus Kevin Thorne and Dragon Izu, and they were doing this big, they were like this big massive brawl. But there at this point, I'm ready to like everything that's happened with Kevin Thorne. I'm ready to. I weren't there when any of the instance happened, so I'm like worked into a frenzy by all this. So I'm like. And I can remember, when I used to go to wrestling shows as a fan and everything like that, I joined in some of the chants and stuff like that, you know, like some of the fun ones and stuff. But I was never like this angry chanter or malicious chanter. And especially when I became involved in the business, I just took it all in, right? And occasionally I joined in a clapping, all that kind of stuff. But this one particular time, Trav was doing his comeback on Kevin Thorne, and I was that worked up. I was like, I'm shouting, "Kick his fucking head in!" Like proper getting enraged by it. And there's another one of the trainees from the GMP. We called him Lance Love. He was Scotty X's brother, Trav's original tag partners. And he whispers to me, he goes, "You know it's a work, right?" And I'm like, "Kill him!" And still just like blowing rage out. And of course, he does tell me eventually. He goes, "Oh, we were getting on by that point," and then he's like, I'm like, "You fucker, I was getting ready to like jump the rail at that point." So he always got me. But again, it was fun. It's like there were never any times when I thought, "Fucking hate him for that," and stuff like that. They were just like, "Dang, drat." Was it PCW show? It was I think it was the fundraiser. What we did for Trav, where you remember the one where Chris Masters flew over?
Yes.
His own air miles and everything, didn't he? To be a part of it. And then, let's say, Fludder had turned up and gave Trav the money off the doors. And I've never seen that. I've never seen that much money with my own eyes. It was like big wads of banknotes and stuff like that. And obviously, Trav knew I was going to be going home that night because I had to work the next day. So he's like, "Mike, you look after this for me." And I'm walking around, and when my pocket on my jeans is like, it's like I've stuck a fanny pack on the side of my leg. It is bulging out of there, and I am so racked with nervousness. It's like, don't lose the money. It's there. It's like it is imprinted. There's no way this money can get out of my jean pocket. But like the entire journey back, I'm checking my pocket to make sure it's not come out, and it's not even budged a muscle. And when she got home, I put the money in my cabinet. I locked it away. Because I'd see Trav the day or two later, and I passed the money back on to him. And I said to him, "Don't ever give me that kind of responsibility again." He's like, "What do you mean?" It's like, "Mate, I was so scared I was going to lose that money." And he's like, "Why?" He's like, "I don't know. I was just like panicking just at the sheer amount of it." And it's like, well, I couldn't take it with me, could I? I would have going on a night out. No. So, yeah.
Right,
So,
I'd have done exactly the same. I'd have been absolutely petrified. I'd have been walking like very, very quickly to wherever, hands on pockets.
Yeah. Everyone would be running a rub. You'd be like looking at you'd be like some granny just like minding her own business, and you'd be like, eyeballs on you, love, eyeballs on you. And and that was just him. And again, that was just him trusting me to look after something for him, which I'm eternally grateful that he trusted me like that. But the pressure, walking around with all that kind of money in my pocket, it were obscene. It made me nervous as anything. But yeah. Again, that's again just an example of like through friendship, how he worked with people. If you had his trust, he trusted you implicitly.
100%.